Let's talk about goal number 2, making progress. There are 3 kinds of students, and each one will show a different kind of progress. Number 1 is what I call the normal student. They're going to be showing a normal amount of progress. They put in a certain amount of work every week, they come back and they made a certain amount of progress. It's very nice to have a normal student. At some point, most students are normal students. At some point, most students are not normal students. But a normal student is kind of like not a particular not a particular person, but a particular way someone might be a student on a particular week or set of weeks. Francine is doing really well this week. For the last 5 weeks, she's made steady progress. I would consider Francine a normal student during that period of time. Next, you have the troubled student. Now, a student can be troubled for lots of reasons. They may be personally troubled, and they're coming to you, and you've got a liability on your hands where they're, damaged in some way, and somehow the parents think that Piano Lessons is going to take care of that, and you have to deal with the damage. So you're going to have to deal with whatever happens with that student. Some of them may be extremely afraid. Some of them may be traumatized, even occasionally. Some of them may just be bored. Some of them may not be interested in piano playing, and they may not be damaged at all. They just don't really care. These are all troubled students, and you want to make sure that you're engaging them because you really have an opportunity not only to keep your student, but to make a difference. Piano lessons can actually heal some trauma in some cases. If you can help someone get over their fear, if you can help someone, learn to love their life a little bit more, then you're doing them a great service. So in order for progress for a troubled student is not going to be automatic. They're not just going to keep going most of the time. Sometimes students, they may be troubled in one way, but they're fine in another and they make steady progress. But let's say you have a student who just can't make progress. They're too self-critical. Every time they practice, they hate the way they sound. They don't think they're any good. They don't like mom. They don't like dad. They don't like you, whatever. And they're not making any progress. The best thing you can do is make the goals as small as possible for these students, as long as they still result in some progress, any progress. Now, as a ridiculous example, let's say I wanted the student to memorize the alphabet, okay? I want to figure out, let's say I asked them week 1, I say, okay, I want you to come back next week and I want you to have memorized the alphabet. They come back, nothing. They don't even know what the alphabet is, even though I wrote it down for them and I told them, go. So my job is to say, well, okay, this student, they can't even get going. They don't even know how to approach this task. How can I break the alphabet up for them so that they can memorize it? What's the method? Now, you could say the smallest you could do is memorize 1 letter a week. You could go even smaller. You could even say, I'm going to take 3 or 4 weeks to memorize that first letter. How do you draw it? I want you to draw that first letter for me every week. I want you to understand the different sounds that letter makes. Okay, now we're going to attach the name. You can always break the task up. Now that can be kind of maddening and it may be too much. So you may want to say, okay, let's memorize A, B, C this week. And then you find manageable chunks. It's your job to figure out what, that progress is going to look like. What is the smallest goal that will still engage them? And for some students, breaking that first letter up into 3 or 4 weeks may be for them what they actually need. And your job is to give them what they actually need. And if you do, you really won't go wrong. If you're actually paying attention to the student, what do they need right now? And you're giving them what they need, you will not go wrong. The student will be engaged. If it's too easy, of course, they won't be. But if they really need A broken up into 3 weeks and they see the progress, they'll like it and they'll stick with you. And of course, there's no reason to think that just because you had to split A up into 3 weeks that you have to split every letter up into 3 weeks. Maybe A takes 3 weeks, B takes 1 week, C, D, E takes 1 week. So as the student begins to get engaged, you can start adding longer and longer, okay? Let's say that you've done everything you can. You've broken up the tasks. You're sure that this is what the student needs, but they are not making any progress. There's really only one thing you can do at this point. You can just expect that it's probably the student refusing to buy into what you're giving them. You know as a teacher with your experience that you're giving them what they need, but they're not taking it. All you can do at this point is to insist on steady practice for 4 to 8 sessions and ask for their trust. Say, okay, I know this is hard for you. I know you don't like doing this, but if you give me 4 weeks and you actually do what I say and you write down what I've done so I can see that you've done it, we can take a look and see if you've made any progress. 99 times out of 100, if the student actually does what you tell them to do, they're going to make progress, and you can point that out. And this is where job number 2 comes into play. The progress the student makes must be identified. They have to see it. They have to understand how they have progressed. And if the student can't figure it out on their own, you toot your own horn, or you toot their horn and say, look, last week you couldn't play your scales in tempo. Today you can play your scales closer to tempo than you could last week. I know you can't play in tempo yet. I know that was the goal, but look, you have improved. I can hear it. If you keep on doing what you're doing, you will get there. Your job as the teacher is to identify that progress for the students, and they will thank you for it. Maybe not in words, but in their engagement.